Greetings everyone, welcome to Advance. This game was played in FIDE Swiss 2025, and with the white pieces we have Arjun Erigaisi, India's most amazing and chaotic player. We have with the black pieces Anton Donchenko. This game is going to be very interesting, so without further ado, let's start with this game. Features a very nice endgame. Here we have e4 by Arjun, e5, knight to f3, knight to f6, and just going for this plethora of defense with knight captures on e5. Definitely something he prepared. d6, the classical variation, knight to f3, and just going for this knight caps on e4. And now we have deviation, not going for d3 and knight back to f6 and maybe bishop to e2 and castles, but here just going for this after this d4. This is the classical attack of Petrosh defense. We have d5, now just bishop to d3, bishop to e7, and just castles. So somewhere along the line this is going to be falling as well, which is why you played this variation. And how now bishop to f5, rook to e1, castles, and knight bd2. So there's a lot of attack and not many pieces to defend. So here either you trade or either you go back. Knight to d6 was played, trying to just, if you want to trade, just trade there, but no trading here. Knight to f1, bishop caps on d3, queen captures, and just c6, just defending it very nicely. But now just comes bishop to f4, just putting some pressure here. Nothing out of the ordinary. This has been played many times. Knight to a6, and now just comes g3. So g3 could be an inclusion. If you are thinking what about the light squares, well, there is no light square bishop, so there is no point. Knight to c7 now, but just knight to e3, knight to e6, and now just going for this bishop caps on d6. Those two knights would have been very strong, and somewhere along the line that knight is going to be jumping here. You won't be able to get rid of that knight. You're going to have to play a move like that, which is going to be obviously annoying. So that's why the bishop captures h4 now. And this is why I call him the chaotic player, because always he goes for these kinds of moves, which is he's pushing so much, and sometimes a bit too much, but he always makes it work. Here rook to e8, but now just comes king to g2, queen to f6, and now just hit b3, queen to g6, queen captures, h captures, and now we are already in the end part of the middle game, and end game is right on the horizon. Here just c4 now, rook a to d8, and just c5, bishop to c7, b4, and now what do you do? I mean, you have these over advanced pawns. What do you do with over advanced pawns? You always challenge them with b6, and that's the move that was played here. Rook e to c1 now, and here just b captures. With the b captures here, you have to understand why not just go for this. I mean, it looks like a very nice move, but it is not, because once you try to create these issues in the position with d captures, then you can understand that this position is going to be very nice. Also, it gives you an idea to stop that. And here a5 was played, just immediately challenging it, but just a3, rook to b8, and knight to c2. And the problem with this position is a move like king to f8. If you try to play here, just trying to get the king into the game, but here just rook a to b1, and now you can see there's already some pressure here. And even if you capture it now, a captures, and rook to b7, trying to double up and maybe put some pressure, but also somewhere along the lines not allowing the rook to go there. Then there's a huge problem in this position, which is this knight c to d4. And now this pawn is under attack. How do you defend it? You don't have any way to defend it. Neither can the knight go back. If you go back with the knight, it just looks horrible. And but this is the best move in this position, unfortunately. And if you trade, then you're just completely lost, because there is no way to defend that. Rook cannot come in here, and once you lose that pawn, there's two connected pass pawns. This game you're already lost and misplayed. But here after knight to c2, we have rook e to c8, not going for any of this madness, but here just rook a to b1, but just king to f8, finally trying to go for it. But already you can see the position is very bad. Why am I saying this already? Because now once this trade happens, there's going to be two pawns here, and once these two pawns here, you already have ideas of actually getting the knight there and pushing that pawn. And with the pawn structure like this, it's just very difficult. You're going to have to play a very constructed game where white will be pushing all the way, you have to defend all the way, and somewhere along the line the pressure, when it mounts on, it just, you make some blunder, and yeah, then afterwards it's very difficult to hold that position. So here rook c to knight c to e1, f6 now, but now just come this knight to d3, king to f7, and just king to f1, king to e7, rook to e1, and just king to d7. So he manages to get the king into the game. It's still a draw, by the way. It's not like it's completely losing, but the position is very bad to play. Here rook to e3, rook to e8, and rook b to e1. So he finally, Arjun doubles up on the e file, and now just a captures, and knight to f8 was played, asking for some trades, but just comes this knight to d4. And now that pawn is very weak. That's why he brought the king in, but somewhere along the line the knight is going to be jumping in. You have to be very careful. Rook captures, and just rook to e8 was trying to get the rook a little bit active, but it doesn't matter. King to e2, rook to a2 check, king to e1, and just bishop to b8. But in this, instead of this, you could also go for this very nice rook to a4, not allowing the pawn to be pushed, because now the knight would hang, and after a move like king to d2, you play bishop to e5, and after knight captures, f captures, rook caps on e5. Yes, it looks scary. Yes, it is very bad. It seems like you're just losing it. But yeah, after capturing of the pawn, you have to understand that yes, it's 3 against 1 if you're taking in literal technical sense, but again, you might be able to hold this. But after king to e1, bishop to b8 was played, and bishop to b8 is just a passive move. It's a waiting move, saying like, you're going to attack. Well, I'm just going to play a waiting move. That's not going to happen. That's not how it works. And somewhere along the line, that's going to bite you where it's not supposed to. King to d1, but just bishop to e5. Now he finally goes for it, but knight captures, f captures, but now it's a bit too late. Rook captures, and you don't have the rook there to try and grab that pawn. Rook captures on f2 was played, but just b5. And I told you about this thrust way back when the knights were there, and now it's going to be really helpful. C captures, rook captures on d5 with a check, king to c7, and just rook to d6. Now, not even allowing the king to get anywhere active, and knight captures is coming. So here b4 was played, but now just comes this rook to a6, and we have b3, knight captures on b3, rook to f3 attacking this and just grabbing another pawn, but just knight to d4. And you must be thinking, how is it actually winning for white? Well, it's not winning per se, but here the only person pushing is with the white pieces. So here after rook to g4, king to c3 was played, king to b7, rook to a4, and rook caps on h4. So black now he has another pass pawn, but it just doesn't matter because c6 was played. Now hit, what do you even do? King to b8 seems like a good move, and it is a good move, but king to c7 here, just knight to b5, king to c6, and it's just, it's most likely a draw. Even with this, with all of these pawns, it's still a draw. So you could have gone for this line, but here after c6 we have king to b8, but king to b8 is a really horrible blunder. And because now rook to b4 check, king to c8, and here rook to b7, and you're not just losing the pawns here, knight is just coming in, you're going to be pushing that, and it's going to be very difficult to defend. There is not a possibility in any world here you could defend this. Here rook to h1, but now just comes king to c4. There were a few checks here. I mean, Arjun really misplayed this because he allowed those checks to be there, and you are not able to move the knight now easily. Rook to c1 check, king to d5, rook to d1, and now just going for these checks. And that's how you should have played this, because just keep on giving checks. I mean, don't even allow the king to move forward. Rook to b6, king to b6, knight to e6, and here after this rook to e7, just go for the knight back, and now just pushing it all the way. But here in this position, rook to c4 was played, and rook to c4 just completely blunders the game, because the move that you want to play is rook to b1, and after king to a6 you play rook to a1. And yes, after going for all of this, but now what if I just defend with the knight? Well, the trouble is, if you defend with the knight, there is a very nice move in this position for the black pieces, very amazing move, which is g5, saying that you have absolutely nothing here in this position, absolutely nothing. You cannot capture. I mean, if you capture here and bring another queen, it's still a draw because I'm attacking your king and you don't have any pawns. So hey, once you capture, most likely what's going to happen is I don't even have to defend the pawn. It's still going to be a draw, and there is nothing you can do. And if you try to do something else, let's just say you don't capture all of those, let's say you go for, instead you go for something else in this position. After rook to b1 check, knight to b5, and after g5, what do you even do? Here just rook captures, but I just push g4, rook captures, and after rook caps on b5, yes, you can even sacrifice the rook here. After king captures, king caps on c7, and yes, it's still a draw with king and a rook and a king and a knight. It's still a draw, and there is nothing you can do in this position. So most likely would have ended in a draw, but after the c7, rook to c4 was played. I don't know what he was thinking, because now just comes this knight to b5, and you can understand there is a lot of ways you can get mated here. You have to be very careful. Rook to c6 check was played, but now king moves back, and after this just rook to c5, king to a4, rook to c4 check, king to a3, and there are no more checks. I mean, you cannot go here. So what do you even do in this position? Anton Donchenko resigned the game, and yeah, Arjun Erigaisi got this spectacular victory, because whatever you do here, this check is coming, this check is coming. You don't have that many squares. Once you move out of the way, I'm also protecting that. So after that I just promote, and you're gonna have to give up the rook. I just capture it, and most likely what's gonna happen is either you lose the knight, or either somewhere along the line I find the best move, which is without even you having to sacrifice the rook for the pawn, I just get the queen into the game, and yeah, it's just completely losing. Anton Donchenko resigned the game, and here Arjun got this spectacular victory. He is on 2.5 out of 3. Prague is on 2.5 out of 3. Lokesh is on 2.5 out of 3, and yeah, it's going to be very amazing to see what the pairing for the next round is going to be. So yeah, we're just waiting for the next rounds, and I'll be covering those as well. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll be coming back with games like these, so stay tuned to the channel, stay updated, and I'll be seeing you guys very soon. Thank you for very much for watching.